So, thank you so much for spending your Wednesday evening with us, coming here to talk all about muzzles. This is the third talk we've done this week. This one specifically is aimed at groomers. It's part of our kind of Muzzle March month where we're trying to work on muzzle education for professionals and the public. So, my name's Annie. I'm the Community Education and Engagement Officer at the Muzzle Movement. The Muzzle Movement primarily designs and manufactures muzzles that are dog welfare friendly. But as you can kind of tell from my role, we are really, really dedicated to the education of professionals, of dog guardians, and the general public about safe and ethical muzzle use. So yeah, that's kind of our sort of background. I'm a accredited trainer myself, so I'm accredited with IMDT and APDT. So that's sort of my background. I worked in rescue as a trainer for a while. I was just speaking to Vanessa and said that I did do a grooming course a long, long time ago, straight out of college. I just did OCN dog grooming, and I think it was quite a few years ago now, so I can't say I'm very experienced in the grooming world, but yeah, I did do that kind of initial training. So we were due to have the amazing Stephanie Zickman tonight, who is the founder of Holistic Grooming Academy, but sadly, due to kind of unforeseen circumstances, she's not able to attend tonight. But she does send her sincere apologies, and she's also sent us a very wonderful speaker in her place. So we're really, really grateful to have Vanessa Barber here with us. So Vanessa runs her dog grooming business, Wag-Wagatha Christi, where she champions the ethical care and well-being before the haircut, which is amazing. She's a tutor for the Holistic Grooming Academy as well. So the HGA, the Holistic Grooming Academy, is a UK multi-accredited online CPD organisation for professional holistic dog groomers. They deliver courses, memberships, and webinars on welfare-focused education, holistic dog grooming, and cooperative care. So lots and lots of experience being brought to the table with Vanessa tonight. So thank you so much, Vanessa, for coming along
You're welcome.
and sharing your views and expertise on muzzles within the grooming environment. So just to let everyone know, there is a chat section on Zoom. So if you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear your viewpoints, your opinions, your experiences. And like I say, if you've got any questions, just pop them in the chat. If you have any technical difficulties, pop them in the chat and Casey will take care of you. And then hopefully we'll have time for a little Q&A at the end so that we can go through any of those questions. And yeah, hopefully myself or Vanessa will be able to answer them for you. Super. So we'll get started. So I'm sure as professional groomers, most people watching this will have probably used a muzzle at some point during grooming. If you want to share that experience, if you want to tell us about that scenario and how you found that, feel free to pop it in the chat. Vanessa, I think it's probably safe to say that there's a scale within grooming in terms of taking a holistic approach. There'll be groomers out there who do their very best to make the experience as positive and pleasant as possible, but perhaps due to pressures from clients, perhaps salon owners, or due to just time constraints, it's perhaps not as kind of force free as we'd perhaps hope. And then there's going to be groomers who are, completely dedicated to ensuring that the handling is consent based and as force free as possible. In any of these areas, muzzles may have a use, and perhaps muzzles in grooming could be a bit divisive. Why do you think that they've become associated with getting the job done rather than supporting the dog's kind of emotional safety?
Basically, I think it started with traditionally grooming has been outcome focused. So groomers have pressure on the time, fitting the groom into a particular time. They're pressured about the finish. Some customers are just interested that they've got beveled feet and whatever, and they're not really that bothered about actually anything else that goes on. So I think it's really how it's been used and how they've been trained as well. I think the education of it, you're kind of told that, and of course I get it, that you have to protect the groomer. You don't, if a dog if you're threat of biting, you use the muzzle.
Yeah.
You know, and that's sort of the conventional grooming route. It may well be changing. I don't know, because again, it was a little while ago when I did my training as well. So basically, muzzles have become sort of associated with getting the job done. Um, and sometimes, you know, that's not necessarily saying the groomers got bad intentions. It's
Yeah.
just, you know, that's their experience, that's what they've been told. And, you know, they're protecting themselves from being bitten.
Mm.
Um, I think things have slightly changed in you know, people, the focus now is starting to encompass the welfare of the dog, and the experience that they have whilst grooming. So I think, but then also it's a lot in my circle, you know, some groomers, and you know, quite rightly, they'll say, well, if I have to use a muzzle, I've failed in my
Yeah.
job as a behavior led groomer or a holistic groomer or what have you.
Mm.
And I think that's quite right, because a lot of the dogs that we see, they're beyond muzzle, you know, they haven't been muzzle trained. If you're
Yeah.
adding muzzle training, then it's too late, you know. So I understand that, and I think that's, you know, that's correct.
Mm.
But it's sort of, because it's had such a bad perception, you now think, oh, anybody that uses a muzzle or is a bad or a cruel groomer. And you know, it I probably would have felt that not so long ago, but it's
Mhm.
only from my experience of positive muzzle using that
Yeah.
I've changed my view of it.
Okay.
And I think, you know, like, we all should keep an open mind, whether you still want to not use a muzzle
Yeah.
because you think that that's right, for the dogs in front of you, fine. But if you think, oh, well, actually, maybe this is something that I can do to just introduce it positively to dogs that don't need a muzzle, just so they have this experience,
Mm.
that's another string to your bow, you know,
Okay.
and it's another skill that that dog and you will have, and can be used if needed.
Yeah. And I think the point you brought up there, that it's really important to remember when using a muzzle during grooming that there are some quite important caveats with that, and that it can easily become, uh, you know, ethically not that sound, in some scenarios. And like you say, in the cases where we are perhaps just putting a muzzle on and hoping for the best rather than using it, uh, as a safety net, really.
Yeah.
What worries you most when muzzles are used to push a dog past their threshold rather than being used as a bit of a safety net?
Well, I mean, the first thing for me is that the dog isn't being listened to,
Mm.
you know, and then that the dog isn't going to trust you. You've broken the bond. It's basically saying, I can see your behaviour,
Mm.
but I don't care.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, um, and that's where, you know, if you have to, if you're a groomer and you're having to completely muzzle a dog all the way through the groom because they are basically reacting
Mm.
to something, everything you're doing, I would say, my personal opinion is, you shouldn't be dealing with that dog.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
not the right dog for you, and that's no criticism on you as a groomer. It just means that there might be somebody more trained in a different way, more
Mhm.
skilled, more behavior skilled,
Mm.
that needs to be addressing the underlying reasons,
Yeah.
rather than, you know, just addressing the symptoms that they're showing, or you know,
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point you raised, that it's almost a kind of matchmaking process, really, of finding the right groomer for the individual dog.
yeah,
I'd not really thought about it that, like, in that way before. And I bet a lot of guardians don't kind of think of that. They just go to the nearest or most convenient groomer to them, when actually groomers will probably have different skill sets
yeah,
and, yeah, different kind of strengths and weaknesses, and that will determine where the dogs are best fit, I suppose. So it perhaps is a case of referring on to a more holistic approach to grooming for those dogs. That's a really interesting point. So when a dog is perhaps struggling with grooming, how often do you think it is about behavior versus a kind of discomfort or pain or perhaps a negative experience in the past?
Well, I think this is where people misinterpret behavior and they see it as something that you can train away or
Mhm.
you can correct. And, you know, most of the time it's going to be, it's communicating something.
Mm.
And if you're not paying attention to what it's communicating, then the dog's just going to learn that you're not listening to it. And like if it's in pain, pain is a it'll escalate behaviors
Mm.
because pain, obviously it's painful.
It's
Obviously
not nice.
it's not nice. And a dog can go from not having any little calming signals or not giving you anything to it can react because of the pain.
Mm.
you know and often it's dogs see experiences differently. We can't see. We might think, oh, like I had a rescue dog in, and there might be just some little bangs outside. They're not
Yeah.
anything that I would register, but to her,
Mm.
she was like, oh, looking away, looking worried what it was, this, that, and the
Yeah.
other. We have to look at the dog in front of us and say, why are they behaving like that? I mean,
Yeah.
that's nothing that I was doing, but if I carried on trying to do something to her, it could have been that actually that was the one thing that I was going to do, might just be touch her, that
Yeah.
she might have been over threshold.
Yeah.
So
So it's
it
almost like a bit of a trigger stacking situation
yeah,
and
exactly.
considering those
Um,
that
she For her, because we don't really know her background and what have you, we don't know her experiences. You kind of have to really observe the dog and listen and to what they're telling you. And I don't think with her, I mean, it's any pain, but I think it's past association, it's bad experiences,
yeah.
it's her trauma that she'll have been through at some point. Um, and it's never behavior, it's not bad behavior.
Mm.
It's just her expressing she's not happy with something and she doesn't feel comfortable, and
Yeah.
if you plow on past that, you're only going to make things worse.
Mm. Yeah. No, that absolutely makes sense. And I think kind of as a sort of holistic, ethical, kind of consent-based groomer, the work that you're doing, what kind of scenarios do you feel a muzzle would be useful in?
um
Do you use them in practice yourself? Like, it's fine if not,
yeah.
just curious.
Well, no, I haven't done, because I
Yeah,
was of the mind was I've not done my job properly
got
if
you.
I
Yeah.
put muscle on, which in a lot of the cases is true. But recently I had a dog come to me who was muzzle trained.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't one of your wonderful muzzles, but
That's
it was a similar. It was a basket one, so it
Yeah.
wasn't it wasn't a bad muzzle.
Yeah, yeah.
And well, initially I was like, oh, when people say, oh yeah, they can wear muzzles, it's like, well, I don't know this.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't always get necessarily the full picture from people.
Yeah.
But I worked very hard to build a relationship, and he was reactive around his paws.
Hmm.
So basically, he came to me about 2 or 3 times, and I said, I'll do the legs, but I'm not going to touch the paws because he doesn't know me from Adam. I want
Yeah.
to build up a relationship with him, this, that, and the other. So on the fourth one, he was fine. He was letting me pick up I don't use restraints. I have a low table. If he sits on the floor, I'll be on the floor with him. I know some groomers would be like, oh, that's dangerous or what have you, but that's the way I've
That's what
been
works
trained
for
to
you. Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And I'm very like to think I'm very skilled at reading the dog's body language.
Hmm.
But if I have a dog from a rescue that comes in, like I have had in, they come already muzzled and they come straight from the shelter.
Mm.
So ethically, it was quite clear I wasn't going to get my hands anywhere near this dog.
Yeah.
But the handler could. So I just talked through what the handler could do
Yeah.
to
Amazing.
to the dog. So because I could see that it would take treats from me, it would let me stroke it, but it wouldn't let me go near its ears. It wouldn't let me. So there was no point pushing it. But it wore the muzzle because obviously, again, we don't really know that it's the history, what have you. But we didn't push it past what it was comfortable with. And I'll work with the shelter to try and, clearly it's built up a relationship with the handler. So if the handler can do it, the handler will do it, So that's one ethical way. And the other one with this dog that I said came muzzle trained, I do use the muzzle with him, but not for only because I think it's a handy skill, so I'll do things with him that he's happy with. And it just becomes part and parcel of, the muzzle's going on. The muzzle's going off. It's all positive.
Brilliant.
And it just means that if he's getting older and, things are becoming slightly more, I don't necessarily know what's going on. He might have hip dysplasia or something, and then one time just turn and snap. And for me, it'll mean that, well, if that was the case and we had the muzzle on, it's not going to do A, me any damage, but B, the dog any damage. Because he's positively, he understands the process, he understands me, trusts me, he's communicated with me that something's wrong there. I'm going to listen to that. And it might be a case of, I'm going to stop the groom, I'm going to call the owner and say, this is unusual behavior, there might be some sort of pain or something's going on, refer him to the vet, or somewhere else. It might be behaviorist or whatever's appropriate. And that's you're looking after that dog, in the best interest for that dog.
Definitely. I think you've raised kind of two really important points there. One being that we shouldn't be using a muzzle to kind of push boundaries and to we shouldn't be putting them on and using them in a grooming scenario in an area where that you're going to get a reaction from that dog as a kind of protection. It really should be like a final layer of safety just in case. So perhaps like the dog you were talking about where you were working on the paws and stuff, it might be that you get the dog to the point where he's really comfortable like having the paws touched and handled and the equipment moved near his paws, and then kind of at the point where you're ready to take that next step, that might be when he wears the muzzle, as long as he's already comfortably conditioned to it, that it's just an extra kind of seatbelt almost.
I mean, and also it's the case of if you have to force a muzzle on a dog, then that is a dog that's not ready to wear that muzzle. So it's not giving you its consent. Whereas if I'm at that stage, I put the muzzle on him and he accepts it, that's sort of like, to me, your consent. It doesn't mean that I'd say never use a muzzle where you wouldn't be happy doing that same thing without the muzzle.
Exactly. Yes, but I completely agree with that. It is literally like a seatbelt, isn't it? Like you don't get into the car and put a seatbelt on, expecting to be in a crash and expecting that seatbelt to save us that day. But we're grateful of it if it's needed. And it's that, I guess it's the same sort of thing. We pop that muzzle on the dog as long as they're comfortable wearing it. And then we're doing, as you say, things that we would happily do without the muzzle. It's just that extra layer of protection if we're kind of a little bit on the fence, if there may be some signs of anything there. So I think that's a really important point to raise. And the other point that I think came up there was that we definitely shouldn't only be putting muzzles on at potentially stressful times. I think it's a really good point that we put the muzzle on, do something completely normal with the dog that they're really, really comfortable having done. So perhaps you've got a dog who's really comfortable being handled around his shoulder areas and stuff, and perhaps not so much around his ears. So we certainly wouldn't just be putting the muzzle on for the ear areas. We'd be putting it on for the shoulder areas as well. So we're not creating a cue,
a trigger
about to do something.
They'll start to associate the muzzle with, this means
that stressful bit.
My ears, tampered with or whatever. Absolutely. Or my bum done or something.
So practicing using that muzzle kind of when it's definitely not needed is a really nice way to keep it nice and neutral, I think, as well. So, at the Muzzle movement, I'm currently working on a campaign called the Just in Case campaign. So, this is where we're encouraging all dogs to have some muzzle training just in case. So, back to that kind of seatbelt analogy, we hope that your dog will never need to use a muzzle, whether it's for veterinary stuff, whether it is for grooming kind of situations, whether it's for behavior changes or whatever. We we really want to make sure that dogs are getting a positive exposure to muzzles in case they're ever needed in the future. But I think it's really important to make it very clear that we're not advocating for dogs to wear a muzzle for every groom just in case they use aggressive behavior. That's not it's not practical, it's
No.
not handy for grooming, and it's not really appropriate for for the dogs to have it on every single time that they're being groomed if they're not necessarily needing it. But it's a useful skill if it's needed. How do you feel a positively muzzle trained dog experiences grooming differently from a dog who only ever sees a muzzle when they're already stressed?
Yeah, I mean it's very differently. Um, I mean, I've got certain dogs that I know, if they struggle with grooming, they struggle with anybody being past, they might accept a little bit round the front, but if you try
Yeah.
and go past behind where they can't see, it's kind of like a no-go area. Well, they're already too late to accept training for a muzzle, because it's like you can't go, you wouldn't be able to clip, they need to trust you first to be able to do it. Whereas a dog who's been positively trained, they get to learn. It's like consistency, predictability.
Mm.
They understand, and they can cope with anything better. So if there is, I don't know, say like I don't know, if you've got a dog that might have, like I have quite a few dogs that are on steroids,
Mm-hmm.
so their skin's very sensitive, and it
Right.
might
Yeah.
be that just sometimes if I'm scissoring, the scissor just might pull slightly or something.
Okay. Yeah.
They'll feel it.
Mm.
Um, well, if you've got a dog not used to a muzzle, that's another candle lit, or another put of water in the bucket, or whatever analogy you want
Yes.
to
Yeah.
use. So it's like another thing. They're going to see it as a threat, that it's restrictive.
Mm.
And if you're not listening to their communication, then it's only another negative. So it's
Yeah.
another stressor for them, and they'll get to learn that actually this muzzle is a negative thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so every time the muzzle comes out, it's going to light another candle. They're going to see it as another way to sort of like not listen to them and restrict them.
Yeah.
Whereas ones that are positively trained to it, again, it's like, well, they're giving you consent because you can put it on them and they're not resisting, that it's sort of like, so they can't be anywhere near threshold
Mm.
because they're allowing you to do that. So it's teaching them a coping mechanism, I think, as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
um,
Absolutely.
and a predictability, and that they'll understand that it might be, they understand, oh, something's going to happen, but they've learned that normally something I like. So they
Mm.
start to associate putting it on with positive experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes
So,
sense.
yeah, I think it just makes them a bit more resilient and
Yeah.
gives them a few more coping skills.
Okay. So
Um,
when you say if you've got a dog who's really uncomfortable with like handling around the head and stuff, and they come to you at that point, and you feel like it's too late to kind of do muzzle training, would that be then kind of passing the onus on to the guardian and encouraging them to do the muzzle training in a less sort of heightened environment, and introducing the muzzle at home, going through the positive muzzle training with them at home, rather than you kind of trying to do that on top of also trying to give them as ethical groom as possible?
well, in my experience, certainly the dogs that I've been working with where I know a muzzle wouldn't be, I don't think, for basically what I do is I have a technique which I use, which gets the dog to understand nothing bad's going to happen, and they start to realize that, oh yeah, actually I can move my hand there, I can touch you there, I can then, once they've learnt that mechanism of the predictability, they have a cue word, so they know something's going to happen. They have a release word, so they know something that's finished.
It's over.
And then, like normally I'd chuck a treat away, and when they come back, that's them re-engaging in the process and what have you. So once you do that, and I get the guardian to do that at home, so it's cemented at home as well. Then it might be a case of, well, further down the line, maybe we can introduce a muzzle exactly the same way. But at the moment, it's a case of, I think it's building that trust. And having the same, and it might be that yes, there might be, I know that I've got a trainer up in Winsford, which is not that far from me, and she offers fittings for your muzzles, and she does the training and what have you. So it might be, I'd say, oh, go and see, I can't remember her name, but
refer
to her. But it really does depend on the dog. If I think that's a good fit, then yes.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Super. So for me, coming from a kind of training and behavior background myself, I've seen how quickly changes can happen, which impact a dog's behavior that we never see coming. So potentially a dog gets attacked by another dog out and about, sudden noise phobias, sudden pain starting for a dog. And I'm sure that similar things can happen in grooming situations. Accidents happen, there's quick nails, there's nicks, there's slips, it's life, these things happen. How do you think those moments can change a dog's relationship with grooming long term?
I think it's a difficult one, because obviously, I've quicked a nail before where the dog hasn't even noticed, and just carried on. It's really the impact. It's the impact on the dog, and you have other dogs where you're not even anywhere near them, the quick, but it's like you've chopped the leg off, So, and sometimes it can just be the fear of pain, which is still a strong association. But I think it's basically how you manage it afterwards. How like, it might be a case of sometimes it might you just might think, well, actually I'm going to have to stop the groom here because I can see that, and do a bit of tea touch or something positive, something to relax them, something that but and hopefully then the dog goes home on the positive, and they don't associate necessarily. They might be a little bit wary of whatever, but if they come back to you and they're still happy they still greet you and they're still what have you, then I don't think that you're doing, I think they understand intention, dog. I think that there's, I think they'll realize that, oh, I didn't like that, but they probably know we didn't mean to do it.
You're right. Like if you accidentally tread on a dog's paw or something, it is like, it probably is like a bit of a different response than if I suppose it's because they're not frightened beforehand, I suppose. And it's just, it's like this sudden thing, and because they've got a good positive piggy bank full of good experiences with that person previously, you've got a bit more leeway when something bad like that happens, and it's just
that all. I suppose the difference is if you're doing it early on, when you haven't, if something happens early on when you haven't built that relationship, that's going to be slightly different to a dog that you've had for ages, and you've got this relationship with, and I don't know, something happens, like you're brushing them and it hurts them or something or whatever. It's not going to be. But then some dogs, if they've got skin, we can't tell what dogs are going to react to all the time.
They're very individual, aren't they? And sometimes their reaction's not what you're expecting. Absolutely. Just got to work with what you see in front of you, I suppose.
Exactly.
And I suppose we also see dogs who are groomed absolutely fine for years, like don't seem to have any worries, don't seem to have any problems, and then suddenly they start struggling. Do you think that this is kind of linked with kind of pain, aging, sensory changes? I suppose sometimes as well, it might be a case that actually the dog has been perhaps in a state of like learned helplessness, and
Yeah.
they have perhaps been showing signs that have been missed, and it's just kind of a bit shut down at that point, I suppose,
Yeah.
and then
Well, I
slowly
think
starting
also
to worry.
fear kind of does intensify over time, doesn't it? So it might be, that the groomer's not doing anything that they haven't done previously.
Yeah,
They won't be doing anything that they haven't been trained to do. And then it's just like, well, I don't, turned around and was snapping at me, or,
yeah,
or trying to death roll or whatever. And you think, yeah, because that's obviously a dog it's been near threshold, and over time it's just like I can't cope with this anymore. And it's just sort of like reacted different. I mean, I have a lot of dogs from local groomers that refer dogs on to me. Sometimes it's in adolescence. That's another area
okay.
where they say, well, they've done all the puppy thing and la di blah, and then they become unmanageable. Or older ones where that they don't want. Sometimes it's just because the groomers have stairs and the dog can't go up the stairs anymore, or it's more difficult for them. But it's good, because I think it's good that the groomers are knowing that they're not the best people now to if they can't accommodate the needs of that dog, refer it on to somebody that can. Because some groomers aren't set up the way I am, and they can't be. And if you're a multi groomer and the dog's getting scared of other dogs,
It's just not going to work. And
yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that kind of grooming either.
no,
there's place for it all. It's just that, like you said, that kind of matchmaking process. It's just
yeah.
that some
It's
dogs
like
aren't
people
fit
might
that
come to
environment.
me and want these amazing poodle rooms where they're like architecture and what have you, and I say that no, I'm really not your person. Refer them on to somebody that I know that can do that really well. So yeah, it's just the same, isn't it? We just
Yeah.
play to our strengths and find the right dogs for us. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure groomers are under real pressure. You've got time considerations, particularly, I suppose, if you're working for a salon owner or a chain or something like that. You've got kind of targets and goals to be meeting, I would imagine. You've got to consider income, client expectations as well. Like I was saying earlier, it's incredibly, fortunate really that there are guardians out there who are willing to consider welfare above the kind of end result, I suppose.
Yeah.
How do muzzles fit into kind of ethical grooming practice without becoming a tool to ignore those limits?
Yeah, it's a hard one, isn't it? And I think people should trust the gut, really, because I think there's two sides to a coin, and ethically, I wouldn't put on a muzzle on the dog to do something that I know I shouldn't be doing on that
Yeah,
dog.
yeah.
So that's like an ethical line.
Mm-hmm.
And some people will always have, and that they'll think, no, I'm never using a muzzle.
Mm.
But that's their lived experience. That's their as long as they are aware of the dogs that they can't then have into their salon because of
Yeah,
that. It's like a dog, Um, and I think that's fine, because for me now I've kind of got over my yips of muzzles, because I think I have used them and I've seen them how they can be worked ethically and positively.
mm.
It's more that now I can advocate for it more
Mm.
with dogs that don't. I was having a conversation saying, to somebody that's coming in on Saturday, I'm doing this talk for the muzzle movement, and she went, oh yeah, I've seen them, they're really nice, aren't they, with all the colours and what have you. She says, I'm thinking of getting one for her spaniel, just because they're going on holiday and it'll be busy, and
Yeah,
it's just it'll be too much for him. And I thought, oh, that's actually really refreshing, just to have a normal conversation,
yeah,
you know
absolutely. Yeah.
um about it. So I just think keep an open mind. You never know. I mean, if I hadn't kept an open mind, I'd still be thinking, no, I'm never going to use a muzzle. And now, I think, well, yeah. I mean, if you're using them ethically, there's nothing wrong with them, but you shouldn't be having to, that's the line, it's getting the line out there to say, you shouldn't be forcing them on a dog, you should have their consent, you shouldn't be grooming them with a muzzle on, all the way through. It's just another tool that you can use. So if needed, if when they're a bit older, it's like trainers are now starting to do sort of muzzle training for puppy courses, and it's like when we do our introduction to puppy grooming, it's another thing that we can use. That we don't have to actually fit it necessarily to head, but have them about, put treats around them, so they just normalise that it's just a piece of equipment. It doesn't have to be difficult.
Absolutely, that was literally going to be my next point. That it's spot on. Is that something that groomers are doing or would consider doing? As part of those kind of puppy sessions or introduction sessions, when you're introducing and starting a positive association with grooming equipment, can a muzzle be included in that grooming equipment? And like you say, literally just popping it down with a few treats around it. And I think as well, we kind of spoke about this on Monday with in the training and behaviour talk. We had this exact discussion about introducing in puppy classes and stuff. I find that that's the kind of key time to get all of the information across to guardians, because they're so eager. They want to do the best for their dog. They've just brought home this new baby, and they're really trying their best for it at this stage. They want to know more, and they're eager to hear your advice and take it on board. So it's the perfect time to do like a little bit of a positive introduction to muzzles to the guardians as well.
Yes, exactly.
And sort of say, there is so many more, not even just for grooming, there's so many benefits to this. Like you said, kind of dogs going away to perhaps busier areas than they're used to, and traveling abroad even for veterinary situations and emergencies. There's so much benefit coming from muzzle training. It just plants that seed. And if they're getting the same information from all the professionals they're coming across, if they go to their puppy class and they hear that message, they go to the vets for their puppy checks and they hear the same message, they go to the groomer for their puppy intros, they hear that same message again, there's much more chance of them taking it on board and kind of listening and taking heed if they're getting it from multiple trusted voices. So that's really great to hear that you're already doing that. That's fantastic.
The other thing I was going to mention about the muzzles, obviously, is that not all muzzles are equal. And there are the duck bill ones and the ones that they say like soft nylon, what have you, but basically they enclose, they close the mouth.
Absolutely.
What have you. Obviously that's restricting their panting, their ability to take treats, and it's also meaning that you are taking away part of their communication, because they can't, I was going to say verbalize, but I mean, I suppose, they can't
vocalize. No, you're right.
With their mouths in those cases as well. So obviously, ethically, we wouldn't be using those because they're restrictive.
Absolutely. So even once you've kind of decided your own like ethical lines to using a muzzle during grooming, it is so important to then also consider the ethical use of the specific muzzle. So making sure, like you say, that there's space for panting so that they can regulate their temperature, especially if they are feeling a bit stressed, or if it is a warm environment, that it's even more vital. It's literally like a basic welfare requirement, isn't it, that they can pant in it, to, like you say, be able to take treats and to drink safely in it, to safely vomit even. It's a bit of a funny one, but it is something that's worth considering. And not, of course, we're always going to advocate for our muzzles because we've genuinely designed them with dog welfare in mind. But if the muzzle is an inappropriate fit, if our muzzle is an inappropriate fit on the dog, it can still not be the right muzzle. It could still be restrictive if it's not the right fit, if it's digging in their cheeks or whatever. So it is an important point to consider as well. So rather than just kind of popping the closest match on and hoping for the best, it's making sure that it's comfortable, it's not digging in their eyes or anything, even if it's for quite a short period, because you can soon create an aversive situation there for them as well. So definitely considering appropriate fit and then the right kind of muzzle for that dog. That's a great point. So kind of outside of bite prevention within a grooming scenario, can you see any other benefits when muzzles are being used thoughtfully in grooming environments?
Well, I think something that I hadn't considered is if it makes the groomer feel more relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes I think, oh, I know I've got this dog coming in, and I know that they can be quite lungy and reactive and what
Yeah,
have you. I have to make sure that I'm not het up
yeah, yeah,
because you can feed off each other's
yeah.
adrenaline or whatever angstiness and what have you. Um, so, I mean, I think some groomers probably would really relax.
Mm,
Maybe, like if it was the first thing you did once the dog was in, to actually just make you relax and think, right, I've put this dog will accept this muzzle,
mm.
take it off again. You know that you can put that muzzle on at any point.
Yeah,
Um, and if that just takes away that, oh,
yeah,
that
yeah. That's a really good point.
anxiousness,
Yeah,
I think that would make because I know some days when I think, when you have an off day, you're not really quite kind of feeling
yeah,
it. I generally will phone up my customers and just say, I'm really not feeling it today. I don't want to put somebody back or what have you. It might just be that, like you call it bad hair day. It's not that actually anything's wrong. It's just
yeah. You just
you
having
just
one of
don't have the energy for
those.
it,
Yeah.
right energy. So I think that could be, if it's a backup and it makes a groomer feel a little bit more secure
Mm,
that this dog will put it on. I know that I can put that on at any point.
mm.
It just takes the edge off the nervousness.
Yeah, that's a really, really, yeah, really important point, definitely.
And
I
then you
think,
can build the relationship better because, the dog's not more vigilant on you because they're thinking, hang on,
yeah,
something's off.
picking up the vibes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, definitely. No, that's a really, really useful point. And like you say, once the dog is comfortable wearing a muzzle, and as long as it's like ethically conditioned, there are lots of benefits. Like I think that those dogs are potentially going to have a little bit more confidence around novel objects because they've been through
yeah,
the process of learning how to deal with this kind of bright plastic thing that we're putting on their face.
yeah, yeah,
But if they've kind of gone through that process and had a really good experience, that might be a transferable skill to other grooming equipment and stuff like that.
yeah,
And I think also it can be a really useful kind of tool. We're talking worst case scenario, but safety in an emergency. So
yes,
if the dog takes ill, or even if like you were to take ill and you needed to get a second pair of hands in there with you, you've got that backup, especially if you're working with a dog who is kind of stranger danger
yeah, yeah,
personality.
yeah,
If the dog needs transport into the vet's an emergency, if they keel over and you need to get them there quickly, you've got that safety net of, okay, we can pop this muzzle on. We're not going to be adding any stress to the dog because they're already happy wearing it.
yeah,
They can do what we need to do. Even like in the event of a fire or something, like all these kind of little,
yeah,
hopefully
unusual,
will never happen, but
yeah,
it's an extra kind of
yeah,
method of keeping everyone safe in those kind of scenarios as well.
yeah. That's true. Something I hadn't really thought of, but yeah, yeah, not sort of novel things. It's protecting the dog as well because you don't know, you've not maybe been through that experience with that dog,
Mm.
so it's just like, yeah, it's a protection for the dog as well, really, isn't it? Right, as
Yeah.
well as, um, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you, if you've got kind of clients coming into you that you said like you can refer to there's a trainer in the kind of local area and stuff. Is there anything that kind of we as the muzzle movement can do to support groomers? Whatever kind of groomer, whether they are kind of a more standard groomer versus a very kind of ethical force free groomer, how can we support groomers to educate their clients and to offer them advice as well? Is there anything that we can do to help you?
Um, oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think a lot of groomers probably, it needs to be as simple as possible, like,
Okay,
because
yeah.
I think, um, I produce packs for new clients, so information will go in there. But I mean, I think there's so much to grooming anyway. Um, some groomers might be a bit like, oh, it's another thing.
Absolutely, yeah, I can understand
I
that.
get that, I understand that. But there's absolutely no harm in just having, if you've got a counter, having a muzzle out on the counter, just
Yeah,
normalizing
yeah,
conversations around it. If people are going abroad, if they're going on holiday and you say, oh, you're taking the dog, is it muzzle trained? Just bringing it up,
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
making it really, really easy. For groomers just to bring it up really and
Yeah,
speak
making
about
it as
it in a
easy as
positive
possible.
way. It doesn't take 2 seconds to share one of your posts, like on their page, or put a link on your website to,
Yeah.
to your page to make it more visible. But maybe if there was a network, so we if we wanted to know like who in our area, I mean, I do, because I'd seen it on the groups, but
Yeah.
so people know who they can, if they want it to
Okay,
be.
like locally to them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's a
I
good
think
idea.
that would be a very easy one to
Yeah.
kind of um
No, that's a good idea. Yeah, because we do genuinely want to help.
yeah,
We want to help professionals to help their clients.
yeah,
And the thing is, with our kind of muzzle education, when we're putting it on our social media and stuff, we're reaching so many people, but they're kind of already within our little bubble.
yeah, yeah,
The people who are following the muzzle movement and consuming our information
yeah,
are probably muzzle advocates anyway, or at least interested in muzzles. So we're not. It's really difficult sometimes to reach that kind of next level of the general public and of dog guardians,
yeah,
especially when we're looking at this kind of campaign of muzzle training every dog, or at least introducing a muzzle positively to every dog. So
yeah.
it's really kind of, we're almost relying on professionals to help us do that, to help with that education.
Well, I
Um,
know that you're producing, aren't you? Sort of like
yeah,
the
so we have made we've literally just launched this just in case campaign, and we've created kind of asset packs. So hopefully that will be something that will be useful to groomers. So
Hmm.
we've done them for kind of specific industries within the dog world, I suppose. So we've got kind of specific information for trainers and behaviorists, for veterinary teams, for groomers, for rescues, and for breeders as well. So you've got access to this asset pack of information for clients, information for yourself, so you can learn a bit more about muzzles yourself, and also how to introduce a muzzle, so you can educate your clients about that. There'll be a free muzzle training video so that you can share that. There's social media posts, and there's posters as well for you to put up in the salon, just to kind of normalize it, I suppose, and
Yeah,
plant those seeds a little bit. So any of the groomers here tonight, I'll send a link afterwards. It won't be tonight, but in the next couple of days, I'll send an email with the links to these packs so that you can sign up, and you've got some resources then to share if you want to. But yeah, hopefully that will be a small step in kind of helping you guys to spread that education a little bit further. So we'll just ask one more question. If there was one thing that you wish every guardian understood about muzzles before grooming ever becomes difficult, what would that be?
oh. Yeah, that it's just another piece of it. It should just be another piece of equipment. Like you get puppy pads, for teaching them where to wee, and you get, your brushes, and you get everything else. It's just it's a piece of kit. And if every dog saw it just as a piece of normal kit,
Yeah.
it would. It's like saying, for doodle ones that just brush the
Yeah.
top of the coat and it's all matted underneath. It's kind of like, if you're using it right and it's introduced positively, it's just another piece of kit. And
Yeah.
I think it's just another feather to your dog's cap, isn't it? And your own cap, to
Yeah.
have another skill for.
That's it. It becomes a bit more of a kind of life skill, doesn't it? It's there to kind of support them through any bad times there are, if it's needed.
Yeah,
That's lovely. Yeah,
Yeah.
super. So we're coming to the end now. So if anyone's got any questions or comments, or if you'd like to share your own experiences, feel free to pop them in the chat. I can't see the chat right now, so bear with me 1 second while I try and find it. Here we go. I can see it.
I was gonna say we've just had a couple of messages in there. I don't know if you want to read them out or if you
Yeah,
want.
I'll have a little look. So we've got Nick said, I made the decision not to use muzzles when I started on the consent grooming route, as I believed it was a sign of failure. So yeah, that's a message that
Yeah.
you
Yeah, and I totally
as
understand.
well.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. I'm now reevaluating that stance and thinking that muzzles do have their place in the salon. Nick, you've made my night. That's so lovely. Like I say, even if it does just kind of, it's just sparking that conversation. And I think it's really easy to see why, once you've gone down the consent-based grooming route, you can see the misuse of muzzles in grooming very clearly. And you definitely don't want to go down that route as well. But I think if we can kind of reframe it and see the benefits of having it as a safety net, and the benefits of kind of spreading that muzzle training for every dog message, that's half of the step towards normalizing it a little bit, I think. It's really interesting to see, multiple groomers having those same feelings. That's really interesting. Claire says, I'm part of the HGA and I have used muzzle movement muzzle in my salon. Oh, that's lovely. I can use this positively with her as she travels on ferries a lot and she has to wear it. So she's really happy in it. The treat hole is amazing. Oh, thank you. That's lovely. Yeah, so the treat hole is really, really handy at the front, definitely. It's not always handy for just as a kind of FYI sort of thing. It's not always handy if the dog using the muzzle is a scavenger, because they can still scavenge through that little treat hole. But we do have scavenger guards that you can see on the front. Yeah, so there is an option for those dogs. Weirdly, my Chihuahua, I don't know, I have no idea why or where this came from, but when I just brush her at home and stuff, but when I do brush her, she eats the fur. Like she will like snuff. I don't know if that's a normal thing or not, but it's it's quite an odd one. So I do think I would perhaps utilize possibly a muzzle and scavenger guard in those kind of situations, because I do not think that that's a healthy thing for it to be doing.
That's actually true. Yeah, I do have a few hair eaters. So
I try and get it out of the way as quick as possible, but it's a bit of a juggle sometimes.
That's another good use of it, I think.
Yeah, do you see that a bit then, dogs that eat the fur?
Yeah, mine used to. She's sort of grown out of it.
Very unusual. Yeah, it's strange.
But only her own, hair. Yeah. She wouldn't sort of. She likes coming in after every groom to have a sniff round, but she won't eat anyone else's hair. But she used to eat her own. Yeah.
And then Claire, I think a different Claire, said, muzzle train from a puppy and continue this familiarization through their life via positive reinforcement. Absolutely. Yeah, we're completely passionate about that message. So that's fantastic. And then Nick said, I saw some very disturbing use of muzzles whilst I was training and it did put me off. Yeah, I can absolutely imagine. And I'm sure you can imagine we've seen lots of inappropriate use of muzzles too. Interestingly, one of the most Googled questions about muzzle training is, which is the best muzzle to stop my dog barking? So it's the use of muzzles, in a wider context than just grooming, definitely has areas that need vast improvement. So I can absolutely see why seeing those kind of scenarios would put you off. But hopefully we can keep going to educate about the ethical use and to show that there is a really ethical and useful purpose for them. So honestly, I really, really appreciate Nick and any other groomers who are feeling this way, that you've actually come and attended this whole talk about muzzles when actually you were quite unsure about them or even against them. Like, it just shows how much you want to learn and how much you care about the welfare of the dogs in your care, that you're kind of willing to learn about something that you really weren't sure about. So honestly, thank you so much for taking the time to come to this. That's really, really lovely, and for everyone for coming along to listen to us jabber on about muzzles all evening, which I could do all night. But I will leave you to get on with your evenings now. Vanessa, thank you so much. Honestly,
No
you've been
problem.
absolutely fantastic. You've given such great insight, and it's really, really great for us to learn more about how muzzles are being used in grooming, because it's not our world at the minute, so it's really handy for us to see. And we do have small sizes coming. We always get asked this by groomers. We do
Yeah.
have smaller sizes on the way, so yeah, hopefully there'll be something for all different kinds of dogs as well. But yeah, thank you so much, Vanessa. Really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for coming. And big thanks to Steph as well. We'll get in touch with her. Yeah, I'm just sorry she couldn't make it tonight, but it's been lovely to have you, Vanessa, as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Super. Thank you so much, everyone. If you've got any questions at all, you can email me directly. So it's info@themuzzlemovement.com. That'll come straight to me. I can answer any questions you've got. If you think of anything after we've had this talk that you would like to ask Vanessa or Stephanie, I'm sure I can direct questions to them as well. But yeah, feel free to get in touch, and I'll send out the link to the Just In Case campaign so you can get some free resources for your clients too. Super. Everyone have a good evening. Thank you so much for coming along. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.